So going back to what we previously looked at, once we've determined the risk, we can assess the risks into their likelihood and severity. We can then look at our options for mitigating the risks, whether it be accept, avoid, reduce, or transfer that risk. Then we're going to go ahead and determine our action. What is the solution we're going to take? So given this option, what is our actual solution? However, we need to take into consideration that every solution comes with impacts and consequences related to economics and the law. Some of the cases we've already looked at or discussed in class a little bit more in terms of the solution, the economic impact and consequences, as well as the legal impact and consequences. We looked a little bit at Jack in the Box. We talked about that in terms of their solution was not to properly cook the contaminated meat. Their economic impact was, as you can imagine, economic loss. There was also medical and even funeral costs for consumers. Finally, while there were no charges filed against the company, families did sue and win through settlements of their cases of damages, wrongful death, in a very tort sense there, against the company. With Jensen Brothers cantaloupes out of Colorado, they decided not to properly clean the contaminated cantaloupe, which resulted in the company losing money. It went out of business. There were hundreds of illnesses across multiple states, and there were 33 deaths. Legally, the owners were found guilty of few charges and sentenced to probation, which is rather light considering the numbers of ill and the deaths involved. Again, we talk about the idea of a plaintiff. Again, this could be a consumer, an employee, or some innocent person on the side of the road, a kind of thing. File a claim against a defendant. We could look at it being the defendant is the firm. Now, with filing of a claim, that costs money. So does going to, even settling costs money. If you win, you could receive payment for your damages. If not, you could opt to go to trial, which again would cost more money. Now, you could win, and this is where you might find your optimum outcome. The defendant is found guilty, maybe even admits guilt. There's payment for damages, even punitive damages. Maybe the government, the court fines the defendant more money, could be to pay for state or federal costs. And we saw with the Peanut Corporation of America, the outcome could involve jail time for those who are guilty. But there's also the opposite, where you don't win in trial. And then you could go to appeal, which again costs more money. So there's a lot of money to consider, the overall economic outlook for going to a trial. I don't want you to lose track of the fact that sometimes it's not about the money, it's about the principle as well. You know, what does this mean in terms of sending a message to the industry that someone can't get away with what they're doing? And I want you to think about that when you watch that McDonald's coffee lawsuit video. I'll mention a little later in this video as well.
Significant change in the nature of the consumer. At this point in time, with the industrialization that we previously talked about, women and children were increasingly leaving the house to go to work. As they were leaving the house and spending more time out of the house, we have an increase in the amount of population that was eating outside of the house. They were eating prepackaged foods, they were eating foods from catering establishments, and they were also eating foods from street vendors. Our sixth factor is a greater amount of international movement of food and people. During this decade, we had greater number of outbreaks of disease related to imported foods. Additionally, immigration aside, we had an increase in the number of people who were traveling abroad, thus increasing their opportunity for contracting some kind of foodborne illness.
Hello and welcome to a recorded lecture for week 5. This is part 1. There's some other things going on this week. Please take a look at the list of things to achieve in the course materials for week 5 for all the different things we have part of the instruction for this week. Before we get started, I want to take a look at a couple of thoughts here. First, students' health and well-being is a priority. Not only for the university, but for me as well. This is one of the reasons why we decided to minimize risk and harm by making the shift from on-ground to online. And with that being said, until further notice, this course will be taught online with short live meetings at regular times and the availability for students to access recorded videos, pre-recorded lectures, and materials. The final paper's due date is Sunday, March 22nd. Please contact me by Saturday if you need up to 2 additional days to complete with no penalty. I'm more focused on a good product than a rushed product.
Here is a list of the actual members, the member countries of the European Food Safety Authority.
So how do we get alignment of policy to look over the food safety not only of England and the UK, but also the 28 members of the European Union?
Let's go more into depth with 3 European nations agencies under the European Food Safety Authority. First, we want to take a look at Food Standards Agency, which represents England, Wales, and North Ireland on food safety and standard issues in the European Union.
Hello, in this video I'm in Canada. We are at Niagara Falls. This is a perfect location for us to talk about the differences between the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and that in the United States of the FDA and the USDA.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency, or CFIA, was established by law in Canada in 1997. The Act consolidated basically all federal food agencies like dealing.
Welcome from Scotland. We're in the shadow of the Edinburgh Castle at the Castle Terrace Farmers Market, where I want to talk about, in this video, a look at how integrity, sustainability, even traceability are some central features of the more proactive public approach to food safety and standards here in Scotland. We're going to look at some other things in Europe as well, but I wanted to use Scotland as a case study, if you will, on video of just how, again, a proactive public approach to food standards and food safety has taken on a new light in the last few years. So I'm talking with Chris from Phelan Farm in Berwickshire, Scotland, about an hour away from here. Yeah. And they're the winners of this year's Scotland Excellence Award in Retail of Meat. And your farm's been around since 1990? 1990. 1990.